Hello everybody, and welcome again to my channel. This time I thought I would train you how to defend the Watchtower online. And I'm doing this because it seems that there are a growing number, or perhaps an ever-present number, of people who are attempting to defend the Watchtower on the various different channels of those who are exposing the truth about it. So I wanted to break down their mindset because I've had discussions with a number of them, and the discussions always go the same way. So basically, to defend the Watchtower, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you have no clue of how to establish a logical argument. Actually, the first prerequisite is some degree of knowledge of current Watchtower teaching, not necessarily in their literature, but what they want you to believe they really teach. There are some apologists out there who have a deeper knowledge of the Watchtower literature, and the more knowledge they have, the better they have to be at arguing hypocritically. So, when a Watchtower apologist establishes their argument, their first line of defense, if you disagree with them or raise a question, is that you are a bad person. So, to be a Watchtower defender, you have to be willing to question people's motives instead of addressing the issues they bring up. And you have to be ready to utilize logical fallacies to defend your point, in spite of overwhelming information of the opposite. You have to assume at all times that you are correct, that the Watchtower is correct, and that anybody that disagrees with you is wrong. So you have to be somewhat arrogant to be a Watchtower defender. So that kind of sums it up briefly, I guess. If you want to take on these defenders, it's not about doctrine. Doctrine is not important. You can argue doctrine with them all day, and they'll continue to utilize their logical fallacies to support their arguments. So what a logical fallacy is it's basically an invalid way of establishing an argument. So, for example, one is circular reasoning, and that's basically when your argument assumes that what you're trying to prove is true. So that's not valid. So I recommend that you learn what logical fallacies are, because once you know what they are, it's very easy to point them out in the arguments of these Watchtower defenders. And once you've stripped them of their logical fallacies, they literally have no way to answer your questions. And once you've demonstrated to them that your motive for taking issue with them is not because you're a bad person, but because you're interested in what is really true, you've then disarmed them on a second front. And what typically happens, once they've realized that they cannot use their logical fallacies and that they have no proof that you're a bad person, well, typically they'll stop arguing with you, because that's the point at which they come face to face with the fact that they actually don't have the weight of evidence on their side. And it's a funny thing to witness this, because the same individuals will continue to post on different channels or on different videos even after it's been demonstrated to them that they're wrong. And the funny thing is, there's at least one individual, I think his name was Stephen P.A. something or another, but after being shown that his arguments were not logical and that they didn't make any sense and there was no basis to them, he told me that I needed to get my life in line, which I found to be really interesting. One of the apologists will openly swear at people. So these individuals that are going online making defense, they're already transgressing the Watchtower code. So there's no telling exactly what type of person they are. They might think that they're doing something that needs to be done, or they might be openly breaking rules. They might have so much pride that they think that there's no way they can be wrong. Who knows? One thing to keep in mind, though, is that do not let these individuals upset you, because they don't have the truth on their side. Their thinking is not free. Their thinking is completely and totally in line with the organization. That's why oftentimes when you're able to demonstrate that they're wrong, you'll see that they turn into angry responses, and they resort to name calling, all sorts of silly little things like that. The one secret to keep in mind is that once somebody starts calling you names, that means that they've already lost the argument. If you have to attack the person instead of their argument, that means that you've lost the argument and you know it. So when someone starts insulting you in their arguments, point out to them that that's an admission on their part that they have already lost the argument, and thank them for that. Say, I'm glad that you have agreed with me that I'm correct and that your only resort is to insult me because you can't deal with the argument. and that gets under their skin pretty good usually. Anyways, those are just a few things, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about the name Spike R. By now, you've probably figured out that Spike R is not my real name. So where did the name Spike R come from? Well, there's a Japanese animation series from the late 90s called Cowboy Bebop, and it's basically about some bounty hunters in space in a futuristic time setting. And things typically go wrong for this group, and it was an entertaining series. And one of the characters in that series is called Spike, so that's where Spike came from. And the R is short for Rainer. Rainer is a character in StarCraft 2. So that's a little insight into who I am and where the name came from. Anyways, thanks for watching.